I had. This is on here. Yeah, I don't know. Hello, yes. Let's hope it stays. So, dear friends, let us begin our today's study of this great biography of the divine in human form. That is how this extraordinary life is. And we have seen in past many classes that it is thus difficult to describe. Description does not come easily because we describe only what we know. Sorry, the voice is getting somehow. Is the battery there? Yeah, what is the problem? So sorry, friends. Sometimes the microphone is working, sometimes not. Like our intellect, sometimes it works, sometimes doesn't. So it is just repeating the behavior of our intelligence. Anyway, so this is the difficulty in describing this biography because it is very different from all that we understand, all that we know in this world. So, Swami Saradananda, the author, is trying his best. Swami Saradananda, his very close, intimate disciple, who has seen Sri Ramakrishna in various different stages, different states. It Hello? Okay, let us hope this time it. Yeah, so now how to fix that? He also mentioned that that's the problem. Hmm. Hello? Okay. So let us begin with our usual opening prayers, and maybe those prayers may fix it, who knows. तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ते भूरिदा जनाः. the volume that we are studying from this biography. This biography is written in 5 volumes, and they are divided according to the moods. It is not according to a chronology exactly. Some chronology has been observed, but it is mainly the act that is presented in that human form, like the teachership, Guru, Sri Ramakrishna as the teacher, which is what we are studying now. There are 2 parts, 2 volumes of this, Sri Ramakrishna as teacher. Then there is a volume called Sri Ramakrishna as a spiritual aspirant, what is called in Sanskrit sadhaka. Then there is Sri Ramakrishna as a child, and how his birth was, and how he grew up, and so forth. And then the last is his final divine mode, Sri Ramakrishna in his divine aspect. The human aspect was so much overpowered by the divine mood, the divine aspect, that that becomes a special volume in this Divya Bhav. And then in that also comes the story of how he got all his disciples who would be instrumental in disseminating the message. So we are seeing this chapter of Guru Bhava and the conclusions, the Sri Ramakrishna as teacher. So it is an act of teaching. So this whole thing is called Leela Prasanga. It is a play enacted, as it were. So in a play enacted, the actors, they show different moods. Like sometimes they would show a tremendous misery. Oh, it hit my heart so much. And then they would make the face corresponding to that, and they will weep and so forth, so profusely then that in real life you won't see anybody doing that shedding tears so much. And then sometimes so much of joy, sometimes lot of anger, lot of hatred. All these moods will be seen in that, but the actor is just showing them, is acting, is not really having anger, but is expressing the anger without getting angry. He is not really suffering, but showing that on the face. A very skilled actor can fool people. One very famous Bengali playwright, director called Father. He was the father of modern Bengali theatre and was a close disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. His name was Girish Chandra Ghosh. So he was acting a very wicked, cruel person in that movie, in that stage show. And then his acting became so real, as it were. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who was one of the spectators attending that play, he was himself a very famous, very learned person in the Bengali society. There is a chapter in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna on Sri Ramakrishna's meeting with Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. But here we are seeing that Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar uh, got so much infuriated with this on the stage behavior of this Girish Chandra Ghosh, acting as a terribly cruel, wicked person. And then he took out his shoe and threw it at him. Stop this! And then the actor Girish said, that is the greatest award that I can think of for my acting. It was so real. So, Sri Ramakrishna is just expressing these things without ever losing his divine awareness. I am divine, and all these things are the manifestations on the stage. So he was the teacher, and that is the chief most important aspect of this manifestation, because God assumes human form to teach humanity. And these are some of the pages that we are reading right now as the conclusion of this whole discussion on Sri Ramakrishna's mood as the teacher. So, we will see that we are on page 542, that it is the last paragraph. This was the discussion is on how Sri Ramakrishna was able to see the different things in the minds of people and act accordingly. How his this intrinsic constitutional purity was. And all these discussions we saw, that how he could judge the character of a person not by any empirical means, not by the study of getting a degree in psychology, no, but by clearly seeing it, by the perception was so clear for him. Swami Vivekananda, we saw in our last class that Swami Vivekananda verified it several times. Now here is another point in this. When we study the Master's vision originating from his spiritual moods, we find that some of them were swasamvedya, experienced by himself, and some were parasamvedya, experienced by others. And there are these two things, like whether Naomi is actually hungry or not. It is she alone knows, but there may be some aspects of it which others could see too, that it is that her tiredness or desire to look at the foods, and that would give some indication that she might be hungry. But the feeling of hunger is understood by oneself, and it could be suppressed also, so that others won't get any inkling of it. It is many times those who regularly do fasting. Now they wouldn't be taking a grain of food for 24 hours, and yet would function as if nothing has happened. Their face won't show any sense of this trouble because of hunger. They are really not even themselves conscious of hunger. because they have decided consciously not to take food. So it is, but the experiences like pains, sometimes one is so expert in camouflaging it that you won't understand from the external appearance that the person is in pain. But that person knows that I am in pain. So there are certain things which are judged by one's own person. You can judge it for yourself. Others will not get any inkling of it unless you tell them. Because there is no outer symptom to it. So it is the like fear that you experienced in dream. Now you got up and then you see it was dream, you are laughing at it now. And now there is no fear element to it. It is all gone. So you may describe it to others. Oh, I was so scared. But that your feeling of fear will not be experienced by others. It is because now you are not feeling it. At that time you felt it, but now you are not feeling it. So even if you describe, the others will not be able to see that. They will be able to judge it to some extent by your description. So certain things are just one's own, like somebody has God realization or not. Has somebody got into that state of samadhi or not? It is basically something that the person alone knows. But the outer manifestations of it could be seen by others. But there is a chance of deception because the outer manifestations may be same in samadhi and in many other states. And also in samadhi, there may not be those outer manifestations. So therefore, it is impossible to definitely say from the external signs. But there is this internal one's own experience. The Sanskrit word for is swasamvedya. And then parasamvedya, that can be seen, measured, understood by others as well. So it is shown here that when his thoughts and steadfast spiritual practices took a concrete form, some visions would be manifest within the master and only he could see them. Other visions took place when he had ascended to higher and higher planes and had come near to the Nirvikalpa state, or when he dwelt in Bhavamukha. We had discussed these words before. I won't spend too much time on this, but just to remind the listeners, Nirvikalpa is a state where there is absolutely no awareness of external world. It is an experience, not that it is kind of sleep. It is an experience of intense inner bliss and consciousness. But that experience effaces all external awareness of the world. So that is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The description can go only as far. Then there is the Bhavamukha, where he is aware of both this world as well as the inner divine blissful state. He is on the threshold hold of these two regions, as it were. So, like if you are standing near the window, then you can see inside the hall as well as out on the street. So, it is just an analogy, a similar state when Sri Ramakrishna could be having that communion with the divine as well as of this world of senses. Both were accessible to him. So, then at such times he could see what was happening at present and what would happen in the future, although this was unknown to others. When he told others about those visions, people would discover later that what he had seen actually came to pass. Just to show, differentiate it from the imagination. The hallucinations that people may have, or the wishful thinking, as it is said, that oh, this will happen, then this will happen. So, it is the fantasies and wishful thinkings, they don't come out to be the fact. They just rise and fall. So, whenever you ask, well, should I now invest into the stocks, or should I take money out from the stocks? Should I invest here or there? Even the experts say, we don't have a crystal ball. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. It is the chances. These are the predictions on the basis of the past patterns and the statistics and the research in that. But it is all you don't know what is going to happen in future. So we have this barrier in our understanding that our mind works in the limitations of time. So past, as it were, is gone. There is nothing much about that we cannot change the past. And future we don't know anything about. So it is only on a junction of the two that we are having our behavior, our life, which Sri Ramakrishna, this division of time would vanish. And so he could really go into the future and see. This is not like time machine, the time machine as such it's a good as fiction. It is not science. Because even if the time machine you take it to the future, you are actually seeing it in the present time. As this time is moving, you are thinking of the other, what is going to happen, as it were, in 2050. So, the time machine, you cannot travel like that in time, basically. It is, but when your awareness gets freed from this idea of change, and we had seen this many times, that the space and time is an automatic outcome. It is automatic outcome of our perception of this multiplicity which is not real. This multiplicity that we see is not permanent, means it is changing all the time. Now that gives rise to our perception of space and time. And then we start thinking that the space and time are as it were real. That is a product. Like how do I distinguish myself and say, is he sitting up there in the balcony? Because there is a distance that is being seen. When I do not see a separation, then I don't see the two or multiple. It is like I have this one hand, this hand, that's it. It is, I don't see that it is separate. When I see this separation inside, I will say, I have got 5 fingers, then I have got wrist. How 5 fingers? Because 1, 2, I can see the distance, the separation between them. So, when we do not see the separation, it is all one. If you have an instrument to see the deeper separation, then you see that there are just zillions of tiny particles, electrons, and the many electrons, they constitute an atom along with a proton and so forth, and mostly it is all space, empty space. So we are just mostly 99%, 99.9%, although we look solid. It is the scientific truth of physics is that we are 99.9% empty space. So, but we don't see it. When we get that kind of perception, then we see the multiplicity there. So, otherwise we see oneness. So, the space is only when we have the multiplicity perceived. Distance between the two means space. Separation between the two, that is space. Separation between objects gives the idea of space. And then this changes. All these things are in continuous flux, so they change. And so one gives rise to another. Events happen. What is the meaning of events? The things are changing. What it was is not now. That is time. Time is the space or the distance between the events. The separation between the events gives the sense of time. So, when this multiplicity is merged into real oneness, one goes beyond this division of time like past, present, future. And so for Sri Ramakrishna or anybody who is the knower of that absolute, there will be no barrier of time. That person will actually have the crystal ball. But he is not going to come and tell you, okay, invest in this stock and in that. No, it is, that is how Sri Ramakrishna's perceptions, he would, and they were so wondrous. People would question, he would say in his way, that, well, the mother shows me, what can I do? Mother means his own transcendental mind. That is showing me this. And that would come true. as you move forward, it comes true. So that is the difference between the predictions that people make on the basis of statistical empirical data. We have seen in last about couple of years of coronavirus, that how many of such so-called scientific predictions did not come true, and many which the scientists did not predict came to be true. So it is something like that. So Sri Ramakrishna's mind could easily go into various times because he was not bound by time. We are bound by time. And therefore, our so-called time machine also is like that. We cannot travel in future. There is a beautiful series on this course in physics that it is that I forget the name, that it is given on the in the form of DVDs or on internet, that great courses, and in that there is one course in physics, so many talks in that, and one was about the time machine, travel in time. It is not possible to travel in time, really speaking, because we are bound by time. So that is how this difference is. So to understand the second group of visions, that is, this is the first group, one had to means first group means that which are only perceived by himself, not accessible. Those visions are not accessible to others. And second, something that is accessible to others. And the second group of visions, one needed neither faith nor sadhana. Witnessing the result, people were compelled to believe that those visions were true, because the results were quite in the open for anybody to see. And so you see those things there, like for example, that Sri Ramakrishna in many different times went into that state of samadhi, and he was dancing in that ecstatic mood, and there would be such physical changes in his body that people could see those. Swami Saradananda and many others have noticed that his height actually increased. Now, this modern anatomy and all that will not accept it, that it cannot happen. Well, it has happened, and the theories cannot fight the facts. Facts are far stronger than all theories. So, it does happen. So many have seen that Sri Ramakrishna's, that while practicing the discipline of deep devotion of a servant in that mood, he adopted the ideal of Hanumana, the servant of Rama, a monkey servant of Rama. And then his behavior changed. It became like monkey. And during that time, the tailbone, as it were, human beings had, as we evolved from monkeys, the tail was not necessary. because the tail imparted that sense of balance to the monkeys. As they jump from tree to tree because of the tail, they could keep the balance. Like you see those who are walking on the rope, they hold a big long rod in their hand to keep the balance by moving the rod. So human beings didn't have to keep on doing all that jumping, so the tail disappeared. But the remnant is still there. There is the tailbone. Now, because Sri Ramakrishna was practicing that mood, actually his tailbone protruded like as if there is a tail there. So, and it was seen by eyewitnesses. So, this is something that others also could perceive. There are such instances here that from what we have said earlier about the nature of the master's mind and what we say now, it is clear that such a mind could not remain idle even in the normal plane of consciousness. In the normal plane of consciousness. If it focused even for a moment on a particular thing or person, it could not stop until it reached a definite conclusion about it by studying its nature and behavior. It would study it, but it would study it very fast, and it would reach conclusion that will be exactly correct, because it would see all sides of it. We only see it the one-sided, and so our conclusions go wrong. Sri Ramakrishna, his mind would just go around all sides, and thus and it would happen very quickly because of the tremendous power of concentration, and would get to the right conclusion. So, in boyhood, his mind discerned that the scholars studied the scriptures to earn money, so he did not learn the type of education that taught how to pack rice and plantain. And that was what was given as gift in those days, to the priest class. The priest would go from home to home, perform certain rituals, and they would be given a bag of rice and a plantain. So some plantains and rice that they would collect. Occasionally some rich host would give them some money as well. So all the learning amounted to this. So that was the ultimate result of their learning the scriptures, getting all this knowledge. It would get debased on the level of money. Money is the kind of leveler. All objects are brought down to the level of money, and thus it is said that if you have money, you can get anything. It is because everything has a monetary price. How much do you charge for it? Come on, I will pay that. Tell me, how much does it cost? Now, what happens therefore is that everything gets leveled, and most of the really valuable features get lost. Like beauty cannot be brought to the level of money. Everything that is really valuable in life refuses to come down to the level of money. Beauty cannot be brought to that level. Happiness cannot be brought to the level of money. That it is your culture and education That cannot be brought at the level of money. Your spiritual understanding, well, has nothing to do with how much money you have. So, but money, it is brought down to the level of money. To make it, commonly you can understand only that. So, that is how our understanding is limited by that, and thus all the nice education of scriptures, they memorize, these scholars, these priestly class, they would memorize the Vedas. They would perform many types of so-called austerities. And then what is the end result of this? That okay, thus I will get more honor. Sri Ramakrishna saw this. I will get more honor, I will get more money. Because of the honor will get followed by money. So everything would come down to the level of what he said, collecting some rice and plantains. And so he desisted from that kind of education by studying it. So, and he studied it so fast. We will now discuss how, as the master grew older, his mind came in contact with various people in different places and arrived at different conclusions about them. It is well known that after Chaitanya passed away, an ongoing antagonism arose between the Shaktas and the Vaishnavas in Bengal. In Bengal, even now, although much subsided, there is this antagonism between the worshippers of God as Shakti, the Divine Mother. They are called Shaktas. And then there are those who worship the God as Vishnu, the beautiful Godhead who stays, as it were, in Vaikuntha or Goloka, and then brings liberation to people. So it is these two different types of people are there worshipping two different these deities, and they became a very strong, powerful sect. Ram Prasad and a few Shakti worshippers realized through sadhana that Kali and Krishna are the same, and proclaimed that the antagonism was misguided. But the masses paid no heed to their words and became carried away by the current of conflict. That is an attraction of human mind. It is a point of psychology, that how we like to fight. We somehow like to rack up quarrel and go on fighting. That is the attraction that many have. And we know that it is not good, but still we bring it out. That is why always you will see fights, quarrels. Say, for example, I am not giving any, please don't put any political spin on that. But then, see, fighting between the Republicans and Democrats. They may be all good people, but then you have to, this is the psychological need of human beings to have fighting. And suppose, there is, you eliminated one party, think that there are no Republicans. Then within Democrats there will be rights and lefts and centers. They will be fighting amongst themselves. Because fight is central. Then even if you take one, again there will be subdivisions and they will be fighting. This is ingrained in human nature that we like to fight. And so, even within God, we have one way to think of God versus the other way to think of God. My way is correct, the other way is wrong, and come on, let us decide it by fighting with each other. Fighting is therefore carried in every part of life, that it is okay, we will have this fight, whosoever is there, let us have this division, points of argument, and then it gets developed into fight. It is all, wherever there is a group, then there are immediately that the group is formed because of the desire to fight with other group. So the two groups are there. Now within this group, again the fight emerges, that arguments, no. It comes down to, husband and wife. Keep on arguing. It is, one person was telling me, in fact the two were discussing, two ladies were discussing, I keep on having arguments and fight with my husband every now and then. And the other enjoined, with me also every day, not a single day passes without having some fight. Now it is because they fighting, argumenting. It is a part of human nature, and it is carried also to our religious life. Come on, let us fight. Even in Vedanta there are therefore, in the Puranas, you hear these stories about the gods fighting with each other. So to decide whether Shiva is greater or Vishnu is greater. So the fighting is there. The devotees, they like to, they are human beings too. So they, instead of holding on to say God, whatever way they want to see, and moving forward on their path, they would look at others and then forget moving on to their path, but keep on fighting with others. Why? If you like Kali, they move according to that, keep on worshipping. Why you want to get distracted? No, I must teach these followers of Krishna that they are wrong, they are not good, they are polluting the society, they are the evil in the society, must eliminate them. So that becomes the attitude. It is thus, this is a Maya, the power of nations, which does not want us to go on in our spiritual discipline. Even in our this spiritual or religious life, it brings this impediment. So the master attained perfection after practicing the sadhanas prescribed by both the Shaktas and Vaishnavas. And so on the basis of this indisputable authority of experience, he could say that yes, both are correct, both are valid paths. So the Vaishnavas had been that caused by the vanity and egotism springing from the lack of spirituality. This is the cause that we do not develop spirituality, and thus the lower tendency of fighting takes over. That it is to stop fighting, well, it is you have to therefore stop this idea of quarreling within. That on Sunday, that Vrajaprana was telling the experience that she, as a 15-year-old, she was doing everything that she could think of, and as a 15-year-old schoolgirl can do, to stop this Vietnam War. And then to distribute the pamphlets, she went to Vedanta Society also, and then met the Swami. To make the long story short, the Swami asked, "What do you want?" Well, she said, "I want to bring peace to the world." The Swami smiled and then said, "Well, bring peace to your own mind, bring peace to yourself first. Then we can think about the world." So if our mind is raging with anger, what kind of peace are we able to give to the world? So even these religious fights are the result of this inner strife, and that prevents us from actually following any spiritual path. So friends, the clock is telling me that this topic actually continues further, but we will stop here because the time is, well, not on our side. We saw that everything is in multiplicity, everything has these elements of space and time. So we shall discontinue the discussion here. We shall meditate on what we learned for a few seconds, and in case if you have questions, please feel free to bring them out, questions or comments. Yes, please. Any question?
There is a web question.
A web question. Come on, read out, please.
From Charles Feldman.
Charles Feldman did not come here today, so he's asking questions from the web. Okay, please read out.
How do we find peace within?
How do we find peace within? That is what we are doing, to concentrate on God, our true self, and see that that is the self of all. Then we will bring peace to our mind. When we see oneness, then there is no strife, there is peace. You won't find your left hand getting into big fight with your right hand. Not possible, because you see the oneness there. So when you see the same self in others, everywhere, then you will feel the peace within. That is how you will become peaceful. That is the way, and a sure short way, to become peaceful. Thank you. So we shall conclude with the closing prayers. May the Divine, who is Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Great Spirit of the Native Americans, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, and Brahman of the Hindus. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the all-loving being manifest himself unto us and grant us abiding understanding and all-consuming divine love. Peace, peace, peace be unto all.